Shakespeare mentions Michaelmas twice in his plays, and both times as a reference for when, throughout the rest of the year, specific actions occurred. So instead of saying, oh, it was last week, they measure it in terms of how far away from Michaelmas whatever they're talking about is located. In Henry IV, Part 1, Henry V asks Francis how old he is, and Francis starts to calculate it up by calling attention to Michaelmas next. Now, Francis doesn't get to finish his answer because Hal and Poins are playing a joke on Francis, and the conversation is interrupted. But the reference is telling about how Shakespeare and his contemporaries calculated up time. They used holidays to mark the passing of the years. The other reference in Shakespeare's plays to Michaelmas is found in Merry Wives of Windsor, when Semple says, "Book of Riddles, why did you not lend it to Alice Shortcake upon All Hallows Must Last a fortnight afore Michaelmas?" Again, the reference suggests that telling time and orienting oneself around the idea of when something occurred was calculated based on the holidays. But what is Michaelmas, you might ask? And I'm so glad you did. Michaelmas is celebrated each year on September 29th and marks the end of the productive or growing season for farmers. It's the official beginning of winter. In medieval England, Michaelmas marked the ending and beginning of the farming year, and George Homans writes that, quote, "At the time harvest was over, and the bailiff or revie of the manor would be making out the accounts for the year." So it was also a time of year when people paid their debts. The town bailiff or chamberlain for Stratford-upon-Avon when William Shakespeare was born was his father, John Shakespeare. And it was John Shakespeare's responsibility to enter the town's fiscal reports and surviving records at Shakespeare Documented, which is part of the Folger Research Library, show that not only did John Shakespeare enter those records for the 1563 to 1564 year, as well as 1565, but that he was also late turning both of them in and had to pay a fee out of his own pocket in association with his job. In England, Wales, and Ireland, accounts were due, and a general reset of servants, employees, and due dates for fines, fees, rent, and other accounts were settled on what's called quarter days throughout the year. This was a public accountability system that they used to make sure that debts or unresolved lawsuits or fees weren't allowed to just continually be put off. So accounts had to be settled and a reckoning had to be made, and it was publicly recorded on the quarter days. The exact dates were different in Ireland than in England and Wales, but for William Shakespeare's lifetime, the quarter days in England and Wales and the Channel Islands were Lady Day, which happened on March 25th, Midsummer Day, which was June 24th, Michaelmas on September 29th, and Christmas, which was December 25th. British tax year still starts on Old Lady Day, which is now April 6th, but that's based on the Gregorian calendar, which was introduced during Shakespeare's lifetime in 1582, when the bard was 18 years old, but the bard would not have followed it. It was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII, who is obviously Catholic since he's the Pope, and with England being staunchly Protestant, they didn't follow this and they didn't pay attention to it at all. In fact, it would take Protestant and Eastern Orthodox countries in Europe a full 3 centuries later to adopt what they would go on to call the improved calendar. And England wouldn't adopt the Gregorian calendar until 1750, which means for William Shakespeare, Lady Day was March 25th. There's a mnemonic for remembering on which day of the month the first 3 quarter days fall, and it just assumes that everyone remembers Christmas December 25th. But for the others, you take the second digit of the day of the month is the number of letters in the month's name, and all 3 of them are 20 something. So for Lady Day, and March has 5 letters, so Lady Day is the 25th of March. Similarly, June has 4 letters, so Midsummer Day is June 24. Finally, Michaelmas is calculated by being 20 something, and Michaelmas has 9 letters, so Michaelmas is September 29th. At many schools and universities, class terms would begin on the quarter days. For example, the fall term would start on September 29th, and that's a tradition that continues even today at more traditional universities, even calling the fall term Michaelmas term. The holiday is celebrated for the Saint Michael, who is the archangel who fought against Satan and his evil angels. It marks the start of colder days and darker nights, or the beginning of winter. The celebration of Michaelmas is associated with encouraging protection during these dark months. As as it was believed that negative forces were stronger in the dark, and so families needed stronger defenses during the later months of the year. A traditional way to celebrate Michaelmas includes cooking a well-fattened goose. There's a saying that says, "Eat a goose on Michaelmas Day, want not for money all the year." It's not unlike some of the traditions we have here in the United States, where there are certain foods you're supposed to eat for New Year's Day. Similarly, for Michaelmas, if you ate the goose, which it's also known as Goose Day, then you were said to have better luck for the coming year. Even today, the famous Nottingham Goose Fair is still held on or around the 3rd of October, and part of the reason they eat a goose is because Queen Elizabeth I was dining on a goose when she heard of the defeat of the Spanish Armada and resolved to eat it on Michaelmas Day. Other people followed suit, and the tradition continued. To find out more about the history of Michaelmas and how to celebrate it, as well as information on the Gregorian calendar, which is a cool part of Shakespeare's life since he didn't follow the calendar we have today, you can find out more about all these things in the show notes for today's episode at castycash.com/Michaelmas. And if you're not quite sure how to spell Michaelmas, never fear, there's a link right below this video that you can click to go there directly. That's it for this week. I'm Cassidy Cash. Until next time, I hope you learn something new about the Bard. Bye-bye.